Who is it that's looking at me? Who is it that's experiencing? When there's a real collapsing into the moment, into what's happening, and there's a seeing that there's nothing that's experiencing this life. There's nothing that's looking out. This life is so empty and it's not located anywhere. I feel like I'm going too deep, like too much into it. I feel like I have to go back and talk about consciousness. So let's look at this word consciousness. Okay, what is consciousness? So when you wake up in the morning, there is something that automatically gets switched on, that you don't sit there and type into your brain before it happens and be like, turn on consciousness. You wake up in the morning and it's your birthright to have consciousness. It happens automatically. Otherwise there would be no waking up. You can't wake up and not have consciousness. You can be unconscious on the personal level. So on the personal level, you can be unconscious that you're in a bad mood, or unconscious that you don't want to go to work that day or something. But you automatically, that's not the unconsciousness or consciousness I'm talking about. You automatically in the morning wake up with consciousness. When you're born into this life, there is consciousness. Consciousness has to be here in order for life to appear. Without consciousness, there's nothing happening. There is no world, there is no experience. So consciousness is the base experience. Most humans think that the consciousness and your soul and your personality structure and your body are all merged into one, and they have no way of pulling it out and pulling it away from each other. They just think that is one thing, that you're a body mind that's walking around that's conscious. And a lot of people think that consciousness is something that forms inside the brain and it belongs to you. And when you shut your eyes and go to sleep at night, consciousness switches off. And when you wake up in the morning, it switched back on again. And you're being conscious of these objects that are separate to you, that are out there separate to you. But this isn't true. When you deeply go into consciousness, you actually find there is no consciousness. There is nothing that's conscious of everything. There isn't a consciousness that's separate from all things. All things are inherently consciousness. There is no thing that's in here or behind your head that's conscious of everything. There's nothing that you can extrapolate out from all things and say, this is what consciousness is. Consciousness is not a thing, yet it's everything. So consciousness is totally empty. So when it's looking now and experiencing now, there's absolutely nothing experiencing at all. It's totally free. It's experiencing and then everything is gone instantly. We think that consciousness is in some way going into time, so we muddle up our thinking mind and consciousness, and we think that the memory of the past is somehow related to consciousness. But consciousness is only here. It's only in appearances, and consciousness doesn't contain or own a memory. A memory appears in it, but it doesn't own it. So there could be still consciousness here, and you could have a bump on your head and completely forget everything, but there's still consciousness. Consciousness is prior to all experience and is all experience. It's totally empty. It's not a thing. And it's experiencing now, and it's not separate from that which it experiences. It's not separate from the sound of my voice, the sight of my face, the sight of your computer, the wall. It is all things that appear. And all things that appear are appearing from that no place. They're not appearing from the past. And if you go into your direct experience, that's how it is. All things are appearing from now, this, what's happening right here, which is so incredibly exciting. It leads everything to this infinite wonder, that everything is totally mysterious. It doesn't make sense, all of this. It's when we try to own things and name things and keep things in time that life becomes dead and depressing and boring and all the things that people describe emptiness as. Emptiness is your freedom. The fact that this is mysterious and that you own nothing and it's nothing experiencing now is the freedom. It means that if you were to be stabbed or hurt or in pain, there's at the core of it, there's nothing actually suffering. The body is in pain, the person might be in pain, but that which is experiencing the person isn't suffering. It's only the dream, in the dream, that it's suffering or it's in pain. But the source of it, there's nothing that ever suffers. And when that pain goes, it's gone. It's not somebody that has owned or had something. It's your brain, it's your memory, it's your body that remembers all these things, or remembers your past traumas. But in this moment, it's always free. And that means that consciousness manifested in the human form, it looks like infinite wonder, because there is nothing known in direct pure consciousness. Consciousness is knowing of all things as they are in this moment, but not knowing on the intellectual, on the mind, on the human body level. It's absolute mystery. So being connected to that, so when you stop being identified with the person and consciousness becomes the experiencer, this life is known as mystery, as anything is possible, infinite wonder, because it is wondrous. Anything could happen. It's only your body and your personality that's putting everything into categories and labeling it of how it's going to be in the future and what it's going to look like and what you're going to be. In the direct moment, it's free to be whatever it is. Your essence is potentiality. It's anything's possible. And that is so incredibly exciting. When you identify with the person, you become a limitation. You become an object moving through time. So you become somebody that's bad or good or right or wrong or tall or short or fat or thin or all those things. And then your partner, your lover, your friends become limitations, because you see everything as a limitation. Everything is an object. It is definable by past events, future events, or what you think about it, rather than we don't know what everything is. It's got that air of mystery to it. So to truly love somebody is to see someone in that vein, see that on the human level, it's an apparent flow through time. So the character has a pattern and logic to it, but on the absolute level, that isn't who they are. Who they are is free to be anything, to be what you are. And this is so truly exciting. So truly exciting. This is wondrous, miraculous. And this is what's forgotten in humanity, and this is why they suffer, because they identify with a limitation when the nature is limitless. So what has to happen is there's to be a waking up from that dream of being separate, and this energetic shift back to infinite, so that there is nothing experiencing, it's emptiness experiencing through a form that's an apparent pattern. So in a form that's an apparent limitation, but this energetic shift and deep knowing that who you are and who you're experiencing, who's experiencing, is not a limitation. Your essence, what's looking now, is totally empty. So speaking now comes from nowhere, moving comes from nowhere. Your patterns, your traumas, your habit, your karma comes from nowhere and doesn't make you. When you believe your karma, your habits, your patterns, your past is you, this is when you butt heads with life, when you argue and fight with life, when life really turns into suffering. It becomes very solid and dense. So how to wake up? It's happening. You can't wake up because you don't actually exist. So all this imagining about becoming free is only imagining to try to make yourself feel better in this moment. You don't exist. You can never wake up, because who are you? You're not a constructed identity that is going to exist in the future. In every moment, you're actually fresh. Even though you're following a pattern and it seems like there is a linear you, in every moment it's free. There is nobody experiencing it. There is nobody linear. So who would wake up? It's a happening. Disidentification happens. Identification happens. And yes, it seems like on the human level, the apparent person does things to get to waking up, but it's nobody's free will, it's nobody's choice. That's simply happening. And two people could do exactly the same things and one could wake up and the other can't. It's not like there is a path. This is a pathless path. We don't know how it happens. If somebody knew, they would be a multi-millionaire selling it to everybody because it's freedom. It would like pass like wild crackers. What's that called? Wildfire? No, wild crackers. No, I forgot that saying. Hotcakes. Hotcakes. Sell like hotcakes. Is that it? So low, so low. So what to do then? So on the human level, my recommendation to you would be to look at your dynamics and look at your seeking patterns, knowing that there's nobody looking at it and that you, the one that's looking at those dynamics, can't actually wake up because you don't exist. But that's a wise thing to do. However, doing it isn't under your control. It seems like it is, but it isn't under your control. And I'll explain that in more detail. So this is a sample that I typically give is, imagine Khaleesi. Khaleesi has my dog. That's a dog. She is a wild dog from Thailand. Now, she doesn't know anything about the idea or concept of choice. It's a human invented word, choice. So we made it up. Dogs don't think in their head, I wonder what I'm going to choose for dinner tonight. I wonder where I'm going to choose to do my pee-pee. They don't have language, so how could they possibly think that? There's some form of imagination going on. They can imagine image maybe, but they can't think in words. They can't think, which boyfriend am I going to choose? Which house am I going to live in to choose? Which bone am I going to choose? Because how would they think that? If they can't speak, if they don't know language, how can they formulate that thought in their head? Our thinking is predominantly by thought as well as images. And I suspect that they have some limited form of imagination happening, but predominantly our thinking is in words. So how could she think about what she's going to choose? However, she does choose, even though she has no concept of what choice is. She doesn't know what choice is. I could put a carrot and a bone down for her, so a chicken bone and a carrot, and she will sniff both. She will take in the information goes into the body, goes into the system, and then a choice is made. But to her, she's not making a choice. To her, there is only one option, and that's the option that's going to happen, but she doesn't even know that. There's just a response happening. And sniffing both those articles, the bone and the carrot, is a way of her body determining which one is better for her. But that's not her choice. It's something the body does, and it's something we do. We believe we're choosing on the surface. So our thoughts say, oh, why don't you choose the carrot over the apple? And then we choose the carrot over the apple, and we think we as an entity have chosen inside our mind, inside our thinking mind. But actually scientists say that that comes 6 seconds after the choice has happened. So the choice has happened in the body before we can even think about it. And then we tell ourselves a story, I'm going to choose the apple, and it makes it seem like there's somebody inside the body choosing the apple. So it's a choiceless choice. So it appears like you're choosing to work on the character. It appears like you're choosing to sit down and listen to me speak now. But actually, it's a happening. And we don't know how it's happening, and that's beautiful, mysterious, and magical. Because things seem to work in logic and seem to make sense and seem to be quite predictable, we think as humans we've manipulated it and we're beating the system, which on a bodily level that's happening, but it's not us doing it. It's like robots. We're programmed to do that. And choice is a way of informing the body. Choice is a way of putting the information into the body. So when Khaleesi sniffs the two bones, it's a way of the body registering what's on offer or what is in front. So when I go to buy a car, I go to the Aldi and I go to the Volvo and I look at two cars, there's not actually a choice that I'm making on the human level, on the thinking level. The body is making the choice, but what I'm doing is I'm putting information into the system, and then I'm saying it's my choice. It's not my choice, it's going to happen. And then I'll tell a story to myself about choosing. And that's fine. You can tell yourself whatever story it is. But energetically, it's knowing deeply that there's nobody that ever chose, which means everybody's innocent. Even all those naughty psychopaths and sociopaths and narcissists. Everyone loves that on the internet at the moment. The narcissist, the psychopath, and sociopath. He's a narcissist, my ex a narcissist, my mother's a narcissist, my father's a narcissist. Everyone loves the narcissist. But of course, I'm not a narcissist. It's super important that we feel like we can choose on the human level. If we didn't, we would feel like we were inside a cage. So it's important that it feels like this choice. It is important that I can choose between the iPhone and the the type of phone is the Samsung phone. Even though it's gonna happen, and it's beyond my control, it's important that it feels like I go into the shop and I make the choice. That's how we're set up. And that is very balanced and empowering on the human level. When you feel on the human level that you can't choose and that you're out of control and don't have any power, then you're likely to be depressed or unbalanced or in disharmony. The human has to feel like it has power and it can choose. This is important qualities on the human level. But it's not the human level that wakes up. There is an effect that happens on the human level from waking up, but it's not that which wakes up. There's an energetic shift beyond that. It's the experiencer, it's this dropping out of that, and it's this energetic movement to nothing is experiencing, emptiness is experiencing, freedom is experiencing. Freedom is experiencing. Isn't that wonderful? What is experiencing now is absolutely limitless. That which looks at me has no place. So when I freeze like that, can you still hear me? It is unknown. So I just have to shut it down. So when there's an identification with the person, seeking begins to form. And seeking is this avoidance. So when there's that identification, so when energetically there's this closing down and feeling like you are a consciousness and you're consciousness and you're a person with thoughts, feelings, ideas, that you're something that came from time, that you're something that's moving into future. When that closes down, it feels uncomfortable. And what it does is it looks to the current experience to find out the problem. And predominantly it looks like at the emotional body. It looks at the emotional body. So if you feel fear or depression or anxiety, you think that there's this energy that tries to get out of that, and then it looks at the outside world and it says, what is it that's causing me depression? What is it that's causing me fear? And it tries to work a way to avoid that, work out a way to avoid all of those experiences, to stop the feeling body being uncomfortable. But over time, what it does is it increases is thinking, it based on what you think about, and it actually encourages the feeling and makes the feeling more and more strong. It cuts you off from the rest of your body because there's so much focus on your thinking mind. So let me give you an example. Say if you're someone as a young child, so identification starts, and then as a young child, there's a lot of satisfaction found in getting attention. So the young child finds it very satisfying at getting attention and being looked at and being told it's good and doing well. So when it goes to school, it's very important for that young child to impress the teachers and make the teachers happy. So when the teacher is happy, it has a very good feeling. And when it has a good feeling, there is a relaxation in the system. So that child has started seeking, and it believes that that pleasure of being loved, being appreciated, is home, is the freedom that it's lost. The freedom that it's lost is emptiness, is this moment, but it believes that that is it. It's not conscious of it, but energetically it begins to play this game where it looks towards pleasure being freedom and pain being something which takes freedom. And the reason happens is because when that child gets the attention, in that moment there's a relaxation. The child tells itself, I've got what I've wanted, and then the seeking stops momentarily. And there's a connection actually in that moment to not being anything. In that moment everything stops, but then it starts up again trying to get the attention. And that game can be very exciting when you're trying to get attention from someone. But when you don't get attention, so when it doesn't do well, when it isn't told it's successful, when it's told off, when it's ignored, when others do better than it, a lot of painful feelings arise in the body, and that increases the seeking. It validates that getting the attention is definitely it, and it does like those feelings because there's such a focus in on the body. There's a focus, a narrowing in. There's a focus just on that personal experience, and everything in that personal experience becomes super important. So there's an uncomfortable feeling of feeling rejected, and then it desperately tries to turn that round. It doesn't want to feel or experience that feeling. So what it can do is it can think about how to impress the teacher or how to impress the other person. It can think about how much it dislikes the person that did get attention. It can imagine times when it had got attention. It can do all types of things in its imagination. And it creates this constant seeking dynamic and a focus on what you think. And this belief begins that your freedom is in the future when you receive pleasure, when you get nice things that you have associated as nice things, nice feelings, nice experiences. And freedom is taken away from you when you get pain. So this game, this pendulum between pleasure and pain becomes super important. And it totally clouds experience. It really fills up experience, and it's totally forgotten that actually it's not in that game that's your freedom. It's that there's nothing looking now, there's nothing experiencing. And that energetic shift is your freedom. It's the identification with the person and then the seeking in pleasure and the seeking to avoid pain that's created this discomfort. All you've ever wanted is to be empty, is to not be that person, to be limitless, to be in contact with that infinite wonder and possibility. That's all you ever wanted. So, as I was saying, there can be a looking at that. There can be a looking at the seeking game and what it is you seek for, to see that it's not true, but know that it's no one seeing it and there's nobody that's doing it. That just happens. I recommend it, and there can be an exploration. So when I work with people one-to-one, I often actually just go through their psychological makeup of what it is they're seeking for and what it is they're deluded by. People are so deluded by what they think. So even in this, if they're feeling frustrated now, they might really believe that it's because they've done something wrong. They don't get it. They're guilty. And they're not even aware that that's the game that's playing. They're just beginning to feel more and more uncomfortable. Or maybe they feel like I'm a bad teacher and I'm too complicated and I'm not explaining it correctly. But that's not true. It can't be true because this isn't an intellectual thing. So in that, you believe that intellectual understanding is going to get you to a place that you're one day going to understand. Understanding will never bring you this. You'll go round forever just like looking for it in feelings. It's here now in this. So when I'm working with people, I look at what they're attached to, what thoughts and belief systems, that people might believe it's frustration, that frustration is true, that life is depressing, that life is dark or bad in some way. And this is totally not true. They might not even see that that's what they feel. It might be deep in their being that they're seeking to avoid deep darkness and everything. So they limit all their experience because they're terrified of darkness. And it's not that you need to sort yourself out and be free of all these dynamics. It's clearing out enough to see that it's not true and have this space to recognize, or for who you truly are to shine through. Like when you're really contracted and narrow and seeking lots, there's so much dense energy on you. There has to be a relax. Okay, so now I will take questions.